Hello and welcome back to the Letterbox Podcast. Before we begin, this episode does come with a gentle note. The letter I'm about to read discusses domestic abuse and coercive control. If anything in this conversation brings up difficult feelings for you, please know you do not have to navigate this alone. Support is available and you deserve to be heard and helped. If you're in the UK, you can find some of the domestic abuse support services listed in the notes for this episode. And if you're listening from outside the UK and you need help finding local support, you are very welcome to reach out to me directly, and I will do my absolute best to try and help you find a service in your area. This letter was sent in anonymously by a writer who reached out to share her lived experience. She explained that it took a long time to feel she was able to write this at all, and that the letter comes from a deeply personal place of reflection after years of trying to make sense of what she has lived through. She describes her experience of domestic violence and coercive control. She spoke about how confusing and disorientating it all was and how it gradually eroded her confidence, self-trust, and sense of reality. Alongside this, she shared that leaving the relationship marked the beginning of a long rebuilding process. Around the same time, she started her own business, began focusing on healing, and slowly worked towards rebuilding her life and identity. Her healing is ongoing and not linear. The woman who wrote this letter wanted to highlight the ongoing issues surrounding domestic violence and how at times victims can be portrayed as abusers. She explains that this is something she personally experienced, and it took a long time for her to find her voice and begin trusting her own reality again. She explained she feels passionate about helping others who have experienced similar trauma through sharing her lived experience and creating spaces that encourage healing and hope. She finished by saying that she's really thankful to the Letterbox Podcast for providing a platform where stories like hers can be shared, and that it means more to her than she can express, which is really touching because, to be honest, it's me that's thankful to her. What follows is her letter. It is incredibly personal, emotional, and written from a place of survival, reflection, and truth. So this brave letter is Dear You. Dear you. For years, I carried the weight of our relationship, believing that if I just loved harder, tried harder, or changed myself enough, that things would get better. Instead, I slowly lost myself. The years I spent with you had a devastating impact, not only on me, but on my children as well. We lived in an environment filled with fear, tension, and unpredictability. We walked on eggshells, never knowing which version of you we would get. You made me feel small. You humiliated me, belittled me, and constantly blamed me for your behaviour. Nothing was ever your fault. Somehow, every angry outburst, every cruel word, and every act of abuse became my responsibility. You wore me down to the point I questioned my own reality. I became confused and unsure of myself. You convinced me that I was the problem, that I was a bad person, and that I needed help. You painted yourself as the victim while I carried the wounds. Your family enabled it. They stood by and watched while I was torn apart. On one occasion, your own mother punched me in the throat in an act of violence I will never forget. Yet somehow, I was still made to feel as though I deserved what happened to me. You had the police convinced that you were the victim. I began to believe your version of events too. You made me think I was ungrateful, that you were doing your best for me and my children, and that I simply couldn't see it. But love doesn't leave someone broken. Love doesn't involve smashed car windows, damaged belongings, and clothes thrown away in fits of rage. Love doesn't involve hospital visits because of the person who is supposed to protect you. It doesn't leave you covered in bruises, grazes, and injuries, taking photographs as evidence because they have been made to question their own reality. There were times you bruised me so badly that I couldn't even bear to look at myself in the mirror. I have endless photos of bruises, grazes, and injuries. Painful reminders of what I endured. No one should have to document their injuries just to remind themselves that what happened to them was real. Those marks eventually faded from my skin, but the fear, humiliation, and trauma remained long after the bruises disappeared. You drank every day. And when you were drunk, another side of you appeared. One that was even crueler, even nastier. The abuse escalated, and my children witnessed things no child should ever have to see. I will never forget the day you dragged me through a sliding door while my then 9-year-old son was there watching. You kicked me to the ground on the pavers outside. My child saw his mother being hurt by someone who claimed to love her. No child should carry memories like that. My children were subjected to witnessing horrible acts of abuse against me, and that is something they should never have had to endure. The scars you left are not all visible. They are in the anxiety, the self-doubt, the years spent questioning my worth and trying to rebuild what was destroyed. But this letter is not about giving you another chance to explain your actions. It's about finally speaking my truth. I survived the emotional, physical, and mental abuse. My children and I survived it. And although you tried to convince me that I was broken, I now know the truth. I was never the problem. I was simply trying to survive someone who refused to take responsibility for the pain they caused. Today, I choose myself. I choose healing. I choose peace. I choose to rebuild the parts of me that were lost trying to survive you. And I choose to never again accept a love that requires me or my children to live in fear. Goodbye. I like so many who are going to hear those words are going to be unsure what it is that you can say to somebody who's been through something like that. I know I've said this before. I really didn't know what this podcast would be when I started 2 months ago. But the fact that it's giving a place for people like this to share their stories and create a space where they're hoping that other people might hear their story and go and seek help. It's really hard to put that into words. So thank you. That's not enough, really, but thank you to the woman who wrote this in. You're incredibly, incredibly brave and strong in living through something like this, surviving it, escaping it, and then choosing to share it with the world just to hope that someone else who's going through something similar might seek help is just an amazing act of humanity. Again, if you've listened to this and this experience is something that is resonating with you, please seek help. You are so deserving of love. And I mean real love, real safe love. You are not alone. You deserve to be happy and you deserve to be safe. Abuse can be confusing and isolating, but there are people and organizations out there to help you make sense of what you're going through or what you have experienced. Once again, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that someone out there will hear this and it will make a difference. And to all of you who are listening, thank you so much for being here and being a part of the Letterbox podcast. These letters are real. They are real people's stories and they are people who want their stories to be heard. And the fact that you are listening to them with me means the world to us. Remember to follow and like and share. By doing so, you are allowing me to make sure that these letters are being heard. Until next time, look after yourselves. Sending you so much love.